Welcome, everyone. I'm Anna Rose, the Exhibition and Programming Associate at the Wende. And thanks so much for tuning into Art Past Present. It's a monthly series focused on the significance of memory and history in contemporary artwork. It's hosted by artist and writer Farrah Karapetian and Joes Segal, the Wende's Chief Curator and Director of Programming. This is our 10th in the series. It's actually our last one as we begin to return to more in-person programming. So thanks so much for being here today for the final one. Our guest today is Vladislav Shapovalov. He's an artist and researcher living and working in Milan and Moscow. He was a member of the art group Product Community from 1999 to 2007. And since 2008, he has been working independently on projects that use the exhibition as a medium to explore entanglements between cultural artifacts, geopolitical configurations, and the notion of history. He was a fellow in the International Fellowship Program for Art and Theory from 2016 to 2017 at Künstlerhaus Bunsenhausen in Innsbruck. The book dedicated to his long-term project, Image Diplomacy, was awarded a grant from the Graham Foundation for Advanced Studies in the Fine Arts and published by Moose Publishing in 2020. This will be about a 45-minute conversation between Vladislav and our co-host. After that, there will be about 15 minutes for Q&A. Let's see. There'll be about 15 minutes for Q&A, so please get your questions ready to put in the Q&A box during that time. And as always, please keep them short, no longer than a sentence or two, so we can try to get to everyone's. And as we're getting started, feel free to say hi in the chat and what city you're tuning in from. We'll be posting the recording of this program on our Vimeo page afterwards. And we'd like to thank Susan Horwitz and Rick Feldman for generously supporting discussion series at the Wende and our virtual programs. And now Farrah and Joes will get us started with the conversation. Thank you.
All right, Anna Rose, thank you very much. And Vladislav, welcome to Art Past Present.
Nice to meet you. And thanks for the invitation, first of all.
No, absolutely. We are looking forward to this. So let me start. You have been working on this project, Image Diplomacy, for the last 6 years or so.
Quite some time. Yeah. It sounds scary, I know.
Not at all. I think it's great that you are so focused on this particular subject, which fits so well with our series as well. So you were focusing or are focusing on images and exhibitions that have been used as forms of soft power or cultural diplomacy or cultural propaganda, if you will. And in the book you published about image diplomacy, which came out last year, it is mentioned that art is an effective tool to explore questions of history. And my first question to you is, why is art so effective as an approach to history? And would you agree with the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche that a great historian also needs to be, or needs to have the creative mind of a great artist?
Oh, wow, that's a challenging question. I don't want to argue with Nietzsche, like start. I don't want to challenge him. So I would try to do it like that. I would make a small kind of dialectical addition to this maxim. I think that great artists, they have to be great historians in a way, or just be a little bit historians. So let's keep this equation like with the two parts. And I think why it's important. I mean, at the end, it's important not only for the artists to think about history, and because we are historical beings. I mean, we are developing through time. We have past, present, and future. We have, and past is giving to us in this kind of crazy, a rather strange capacity to create these filmic narratives about our biographies, which has seemingly no evolutional purpose at all. But it allows us to create scenarios for the future, and that's the way how we use past. I mean, it's not a kind of backward-looking concern. It has to do a lot with, mostly with present, first of all, and obviously it has to do with the future. Moreover, I mean, all these things, they're rather kind of abstract and philosophical. notions, let's say, importance. But I would say that there is also a very pragmatical dimension. If you're working in arts, or if you're, I mean, in general, in any field which has to do with creativity, where novelty valued, and when novelty, inventing something new or making a step further is requested from you, you definitely should read a lot of history. Like, I mean, in general, understand how regimes of historicity are built. I mean, and by regimes of historicity, I mean how you chain together past, present, and future, how you create this narrative. Because, I mean, you won't invent anything new, or you won't move further if you will look on artifacts, narratives, texts about present or about future, on news or something concerned with the future, trying to think about future. There's no way, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it just does not work that way. So there is really kind of pragmatical benefit for artists and for any kind of creative worker, let's say, to be concerned and interested in history, but also for.
And I think it's the same for the historian. In fact, you as a historian, you always have to have the presence and the future in mind. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense what you're doing. I want to dive in a little bit into your project. So the Cold War is mainly remembered as this bipolar competition between the power blocks in terms of ideologies, but also in terms of science and technology, sports, the arts, consumer culture, social welfare, etc., etc. You are focusing on a specific form of competition, image competition, but as you know very well, images are quite tricky. They can be interpreted in many different ways. So how would you say that the organizations responsible for cultural diplomacy in the United States and the Soviet Union dealt with the problem that maybe their propagandistic intentions or political intentions could be interpreted in various ways, just because of the character of images?
Yeah, I see. The project, yes, as you said correctly, the project is concerned with the images and images as photography, but there is this additional dimension which complicates the things a little bit more. We're speaking about photographic exhibitions, so it's not printed media. We're not speaking about magazines. It's not cinema. We're speaking about this specific kind of public photographic spaces arranged for collective of spectators coming there and encountering other people in the images or other kind of types of life or organization of life. And I mean, we're speaking about Cold War. We're speaking about this period after 1945. So which is, let's just focus for a second on the media landscape these years. So it's obviously after the invention of cinema, it's after the invention of photography. Photography starts to become almost kind of domestic technology. Everybody have photo camera. TV is still not everywhere. I mean, in 70s and 60s. So cinema is already a dominant media. But the thing is that we're speaking about exhibitions organized somewhere else, abroad.
Right.
And here, both organizations, I mean, both sides, US and USSR, had to deal with a series of kind of pragmatic considerations. Because if you want to, how will you mediate these images? If you want to mediate them through cinema, present them as a moving image, you will have to deal with translation. You will need subtitle it, or I don't know, or maybe you will put intertitles or whatever. It could work well for one specific country, but again, Cold War is a global event, a global process. So how many translations of one specific film you have to do? You will have to pass through, I don't know, censorship boards and so on and so on. So both sides, they do this, they make this smart move. They decide to work with the images and escape this constraint of text and language, like of voice. I mean, it's not purely, I don't see it as purely kind of pragmatic choice, because they also been influenced very much by this idea, very characteristic for mid-20th century, this idea, this rather false utopia of universal language of photography. Exactly because there are no words, there is no voice, there is nothing to translate. Anyone who is able to perceive images, see images, will understand everything immediately. It's like the last, I mean, that's basically the seeing is believing. So you see something, you believe in it, it is as it is, there is nothing behind, there is nothing to translate, there is no ambiguity, and there is nothing to interpret in any way. It is what it is. And that was photography was promising. But obviously, I mean, as we understand now, it's a really utopian, it's a fallen utopia, because images, they contain myriads and thousands and hundreds of layers of meanings. So, I mean, they've been believing, they did this kind of pragmatic choice. We'll deal with photography because we just don't want to work with the endless translations. And at the same time, of course, there's this kind of great belief and faith in this universal language of photography. And this also the specific type of photography, the so-called straight photography, which is kind of derivative form of documentary photography, very well, I mean, this mid-century 50s, 60s kind of photography, yeah, right. Which nowadays we see as an artistic. Nowadays, all these photographs, I mean, they're featured in art exhibitions. They're not considered documentary at all.
Right. So to make this point maybe a little bit more concrete as well, you have been specifically looking at these travel exhibition kits from the Soviet Union and the American travel exhibition, The Family of Man. Yeah. Do you know of any examples where the original intention of the organizers was contradicted by the reception of the viewers in the different countries where these exhibitions were pulled up?
That's a very good question. I mean, and again, we will have endlessly to kind of correct a little bit our assumptions, because when you say misinterpret in a way, I mean, what do we imply? We imply that there is an author who could probably be, I don't know, dissident or something. Which kind of message could be misinterpreted? I mean, understood incorrectly or transformed in something else. The point is that everybody, all authors, photographers, artists who participated in this kind of events, I mean, they are nor victims, neither dissidents. They are absolutely products of their time. And it's true for the Soviet side and for American side. So, I mean, at the end, technically speaking, there were no kind of hidden message that could be misunderstood or misperceived. The only thing that I was encountering many times in different archives, and mostly in Soviet archives in Moscow, the only thing that artists, photographer complained a lot, they basically complained about the fact that authorities organizing the exhibition been ignoring aesthetics. So, for example, photographer, he did a series, like, I don't know, 7 images or 10 images. And you know that it's pretty common for photographers to work in series. Mm-hmm. But curator chooses 1 picture. And and the author is endlessly arguing that, no, you should respect my artistic intention and take 3 images into your exhibition, or 5 images. So they were never challenging, let's say, ideological context or political meaning of the whole situation. They were always trying to protect their kind of artistic autonomy. Plus, again, this artistic autonomy it was not only desire, kind of naive desire to protect art, like to preserve your artistic autonomy. It was also very, again, calculated understanding that more photographs you put into an exhibition, which goes abroad, the more interesting your CV becomes. And that was, for example, especially for Soviet photographers, that was the way to have this very long CVs with international exhibitions without never traveling anywhere.
Right.
They were endlessly requesting catalogs afterwards, and so on and so on. So for them, it was, so you have always in archival documents the strange situation of people kind of in love with the photography and with the aesthetical side of the whole situation, but completely ignoring any kind of possible ambiguities and kind of complications connected with the whole process. In general, that was also true for Steichen, for example, with A Family of Men. He's just in love with photography, and he would like to travel with his show together, like to see how, because he just in love with the thing, with what he does.
Yeah, so Steichen was the organizer of the Family of Men exhibition, which was originally shown in the Museum of Modern Art in New York in 1955. Then it started to travel, and it traveled among other places to Moscow, to the American National Exhibition there in 1959. I think this is such an interesting example, this exhibition, because there is always this tension between, on the one hand, the original intention, apparent intention from Steichen to showcase the equality of people and human beings as being one big family, as opposed to the bipolarity of the Cold War. But then on the other hand, there were also critics like Roland Barthes and Susan Sontag who conceived of this exhibition as a sentimental exercise that actually obscured the historically determined structural inequalities, globally speaking. So I know that in the film you made about image diplomacy, you actually projected some visitor responses to the exhibition in Moscow. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What kind of responses did it evoke? And what does that say about the effectiveness of the whole exhibition?
Mm. Now, the thing here is that nowadays the Family of Men is reconstructed in Clairvaux in Luxembourg. After the death of Steichen, the exhibition was given as a gift to Luxembourg, and it was reinstalled, reconstructed inside a castle. So now it becomes kind of a museum of one exhibition. So when I've been working on the project, I discovered the fact that you can visit the Family of Men now. I mean, it's not exactly the same space. It's not like MoMA. It's not a copy of MoMA, but they tried to preserve relationships between images. So this kind of power echoes, visual rhythms, and all this kind of things. So it's pretty kind of, I mean, just there's almost like the same exhibition. And when I went there and entered into the space, the situation, I was asking myself, okay, but what happens now in 2017 when you enter into the show? Because obviously we see it very differently. We already know so much more, and we have so many layers of different things. How would it be possible for me to include it in my project? So actually to show to a spectator, to someone entering into my exhibition. And my idea was that I'm more interested, at the end, I'm more interested in showing you how spectators, the perception of original spectators from 59. I don't want to show you an exhibition of Steichen because already so many things are said and done about this project. It's massively historicized. It's like a monument to itself. So there is, from one point of view, there's nothing else to add almost. From another point of view, I'm not that particularly interested. And I was interested in how it was seen in 59. And the way to get to this knowledge, how it was seen in 1959, I went to archives in the National Archives in Washington, and there are these incredible documents. So basically what United States Information Agency did, they were collecting this so-called visitor comments books, where visitors leave their feedbacks on the show or something like that. And after that, they've been analyzing it, like kind of debriefing the whole team working on the exhibition, which kind of contents, in which way works, and so on and so on. And these documents, I mean, they're really incredible. And I started to work with one volume focused on comments from Moscow, from exhibition of Family of Men in Moscow in 1959. Well, and they are incredible. I mean, it's just really, and it struck me so strongly because that's what I was looking for, like how to show you the gaze of a person in 59, because I wanted you to see it with the eyes of someone else. And the range of these comments is just incredibly wide. I mean, you will have people really impressed by the beauty of the show, by the beauty of display and of photography. You would see people, you would see comments from like expressively kind of anti-American comments, like really hating purely the only fact that it comes from this specific country. But afterwards, you would see really this kind of particular incredible ways in which people, for example, are trying kind of dialectically reappropriate this message. Because what is important here, we should not presume that the original spectators, people who saw it in 59 in Moscow, they were more naive than we are now. I mean, from the one point of view, they are as intelligent as we are now. And at the same time, we are as susceptible for the power of images and as they were in 1959. So they're trying to negotiate this power of an image and all the surrounding political context. And they're trying to, for example, one comment that I like a lot, this attempt to really kind of in a funny kind of creative way to reappropriate dialectically the exhibition. And the person writes that I consider this exhibition a great contribution to communism. And that's kind of true, because what you're speaking about, you're speaking that humanity is just one family. We're all in it together. It's about solidarity, friendship, love, and just human beings being together. Yes, of course, that's what communism is about. So there is this kind of incredible ways of kind of reappropriation, perception, and what I wanted to show you through representation, through putting this visitor comments as an overlay, like superimposing them on the tour through a reconstruction of the Family of Men in Clairvoy, I wanted to show you this. Well, this complexity. I mean, as I said, that we're as susceptible to the power of images, of visuality. I mean, it still strikes us as it's as powerful as it was in 1959. And people in 1959, they were as intellectually capable, I mean, critical, as we are now. So we are still in this very strange relationships with the images and political context that surrounds them. That was basically, for me, the nucleus, let's say, the center of this situation. And that's how you see Family of Men now. If you will go there, you will be in this situation. What I will do with this? It's so beautiful, but at the same time, it's obvious what it is.
Right.
Another of the ways in which you framed that show, another of the things that you kind of revealed to us about that show, which was opaque in its kind of humanistic values at the time, is the U.S. government memorandum on self-censorship. Would you explain that to people and kind of help our audience to understand in what way that alters the framing of the show?
So basically, in 1959, why this exhibition went to Moscow? Because in 1958, there was some kind of detente, some kind of reset of relationships between US and USSR. And the way to, let's say, to mark this newborn friendship was to exchange with these big national exhibitions. So the Soviet exhibition went to New York. I don't remember if in 58 or in 59, as an exchange, the American exhibition would travel to Moscow. This exhibition, I mean, it's not as well known by its title. It's known by this so-called kitchen debate, where Nixon is arguing with Khrushchev. So this exhibition arrives to Moscow, and there are many different pavilions. There is a pavilion on, let's say, I don't know, the typical American house, cars, I don't know, domestic kind of appliances, and so on and so on and so on, like a lifestyle, showing the lifestyle, prosperity, and so on and so on. And one of the pavilions is dedicated to this exhibition, the Family of Man. And Family of Man already traveling around the world. So Moscow was not the first stop of this tour. So it was traveling, I don't know, Poland, Italy, France, South Africa, whatever. And the thing is that how Family of Man is structured. It's structured in chapters, and you have chapter, I don't know, family, love, dance, food, and so on and so on and so on, like different kind of anthropological manifestations of humanity. And one of these chapters is a kind of protest or like rebellion. And this chapter protest on rebellion, it consists of a couple of walls with maybe 5-7 photographs. And one of these photographs, it's a photograph of anti-Soviet riot in East Germany. You see a couple of figures and they're throwing stones in a Soviet tank or something. Well, and of course, obviously, I mean, bringing this image to Moscow in 1959 would be a little bit problematic. Essentially, and moreover, the agreement between two countries at the moment, the precondition kind of requirement for this cultural exchange was that both sides will not engage in any kind of political propaganda. That's incredible, but they agreed. So you are not trying to kind of inject some political content in this beautiful photographic exhibition. But so, I mean, okay, let's throw it away, this picture. Let's just not show it in Moscow. But the problem is that show is already traveling for a long time. And the catalog of an exhibition is already a bestseller. So if you are bringing to Moscow an exhibition and everybody see that, okay, but they're editing it just every time. They're just changing this. So all this discourse on democracy, self-expression, and artistic autonomy, freedom, and so on, just collapses at the very same moment. I mean, like zero credibility, guys, but you're just editing it on the go. Mm-hmm. So you can't bring it to Moscow at the same time, you can't throw it away. Mm-hmm. And it will create an enormous scandal if you bring it to Moscow, because they will say, guys, come on, but we agreed that we're not doing this kind of stuff here. So, and it was all this drama, plus additional level of complexity adds the fact that it's an authorial work. The whole exhibition is an artwork, and it's an artwork of a curator. Mm-hmm. And the caption for the show, it's written, it's not even curated by Edward Steichen, it's created by Edward Steichen. So you can't intervene into an artwork. You can't just draw something on the painting or just take away this Eastern Germany riot. Mm-hmm. And it was all this drama around, I mean, what to do. So in the United States Information Agency, they created, as you said, this kind of commission, which was trying to understand what to do. Can we throw away this image or not? And at the end, they decided to remove it, to delete it.
Mm-hmm. And you reveal that in your show just by exhibiting the document, right? That is
I reveal it in an exhibition in the version of image diplomacy which was exhibited in Moscow. Mm-hmm. I exhibit the documents, so basically page by page, because the meeting of this committee, of this commission, the discussion of what can be done if I'm not making a mistake, the title of this discussion was Possible Political Complications. Discussing, okay, which are possible political complications of showing this image, and which are possible political complications of not showing it, like removing it from where. So they're trying to balance pro and contra for this decision. And I put it, yes, I exhibit these documents as a kind of documentary thriller, like a detective on the table. And you can just read it, you follow the document, the transcript of the meeting, and at the very end, you see the catalog of the Family of Men opened on the page with this small photograph. And also it reappears in the film.
Right. Yeah, I mean, many of my questions about your work as I look at it really have to do with this issue of the oscillation between subjectivity and handling and objectivity and the kind of aesthetics of objectivity. So as you say, there's this kind of creative decision making by Seichen, and then there's this creative intervention almost that's not really creative of extracting the picture, which is different from the portable exhibition kits that you're working with from the Soviet Union, which actually change mutability depending on context is built into them, right? You have something that goes out with 150 different exhibition possibilities in it because it might meet 150 different audiences. And that's part of its kind of flair as far as its capacity to reach. So there's very different kinds of
approaches are very different.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can say even that United States kind of, I mean, it was a recipe for disaster. If you want to travel just one show around the whole planet, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster and it was actually a disaster because apart from the fact that Soviets would be pissed off by this image of Eastern riot in Eastern Germany, many diplomats from third countries were coming to see the shows. And there been one photograph of a Chinese child begging on the street for food or something. And another problem was that probably Chinese ambassador will come to see the show, and it also would create problems. So yeah, it was a recipe for disaster. And the Soviet approach was very different. As you said, yeah, complete mutability. Everything is tailored for a specific context. Moreover, also what they did differently, because in case of United States Information Agency, you have an author, which allows you to achieve a couple of things, because you can always say that it's not propaganda because we have an artist. I mean, he invented it. Soviet Union, they decided, okay, we won't have any authors. It will be kind of, I don't know, it's just as real. It's just a reality imprinted on the photo paper and on display. No one did it. That's just how life in Soviet Union looked like. From one point of view, yes, you don't have an author, so you can say that it's not propaganda, artists did it. But the thing that what they achieved, the Soviet side, they achieved this level of, it became a document. I mean, it's documentary. Because you can say, yeah, okay, fine, but they're just a bunch of art photographers and he's also a curator. They're just imagining some things. And this is really a reality as it is. It's just, it's like almost a reportage. Of course, we are trying to frame it. And I mean, you just remove an artist. You remove this kind of artistic license and it becomes an imprint of reality. That's what it is. So the methods were very different, like removal of author and tailoring exhibition for specific context. The US decided, okay, we will do one big blockbuster and it will have an artist behind.
And I mean, there's a similarity also in terms of, I mean, there's so many avenues we can go with this. One way I see to go with this is in your election of the picture of Lenin giving the speech on May Day 1920, which is often used to, as you know.
Yeah, it's kind of an iconic example of censoring and editing and retouching.
Right. And it's this use of editing in a way that is not attached to subjectivity, that's not attached to creativity. It's attached to the rewriting of objectivity. Like you are creating a new history and all.
I mean, it's a writing of history. I mean, we don't want these guys to stand close to Lenin.
Right.
No, the point, I mean, this photograph, yeah, they're removing Trotsky and Kamenev. I mean, at some point, these guys become disgraced and they excluded from the pantheon of revolutionaries. Okay, so we don't need them anymore closer to Lenin. I mean, a part of it definitely, I mean, this image is very kind of significant in all this discussion on documentary, on editing, on anything. But what also kind of struck me that this organization, Vox, which is Soviet counterpart of United States Information Agency, it was basically created and founded, like conceived by wife of Kamenev and by sister of Trotsky. So there is this kind of very strange irony, you know, this phrase like that revolution, divorce eats its children. And I remember who said it, Robespierre or something like that. That the revolution after that becomes reactionary and just kills everyone. And I saw in this picture exactly this story. So basically, she conceived, invented, and created this organization. 50 years later, this organization organizes exhibition about historical events and is canceling her brother and husband because they're not okay anymore. So there is this kind of strange irony of destiny in a way. I mean, you're working for the system, and after that, it turns on you in this rather, I don't know, inhuman way. Like we will erase all the traces of like whatever, anything, your family, anything like that. I mean, you have also this kind of thing behind. So it's very kind of human story, not only about documents and I don't know, faking history.
Right. And then there are a couple other kinds of really, really subjective moves that even move further away from the notion of editing or writing history and towards kind of a subjectivity that I've been seeing in your work. Like, for example, not part of the image diplomacy project per se, but the green flag, blue flag project that you showed recently at Garage, where you tell us about that. You photographed a couple of flags that had been made and literally signed with thread.
It's an installation that consists of two big black and white kind of photographs blown up to the size of the wall, like two wallpapers, archival photographs of women working at two factories. And you see, again, attached over this photograph, two frames with two color photographs of two flags. So the story behind this, and these flags, you see that they have like female names stitched on them. So these flags, I mean, they consist of small pieces of textile, like maybe 5 per 7 centimeters, with different Italian names, like Mina, Livia, and so on. And the story behind, I mean, I found these flags. I've been working in doing a small research in the archive of, I think it's kind of trade union of textile workers in Biela, his region historically rich with the textile industry. I mean, that's land where all this incredible textiles done even now. I mean, like homeland of all these companies like Xenia and so on. And the archive of trade union of mostly female workers of this textile factories, they have a collection of flags, like different flags that they would use normally on the manifestations. And very often you have a logo of a factory or maybe an emblem of the city, like something iconic, some symbol of, I don't know, party, organization, city, factory, or whatever. And two flags, I mean, they've been really kind of particular, like incredible. They have no emblem, no logo, no title of organization, anything. They're just stitched together from these small pieces of textile with the female names. And the story behind was that two factories exchanged at some point with this flag. The workers of two factories created a flag with their own name and exchanged between them, and afterwards used them for the demonstration. So, I mean, that's an incredible artifact. It's an artifact. I mean, try to imagine, I mean, for example, you work for the whole life in this factory. It's a manual labor. I mean, you're doing something with your hands, like aesthetic artifacts, like incredible textile or something else. But how you sign it? You sign it with the name of the brand or fashion house. Very often it could be last name of a person, because very often this Italian fashion houses or textile brands, you never I mean, you're doing something with your hands all your life, but you never sign it. I mean, you're completely alienated from the product of your labor. At the same time, they participated in this trade union kind of struggle for labor rights and so on. And they have, and this flex, it's a kind of strange moment, like intersection between these two vectors of their life. This manual labor, they kind of de-alienated. They find it, I mean, it's not alienated anymore because they sign this. I mean, it's mostly, at the end, it could be the only piece of kind of work that they sign with their name. The small 7 or 3 centimeters piece of textile. And it's the only signed piece of manual labor with textile went into the flag and was used as manifestation. So I see it as, you know, this moment of kind of the subjectivity of these workers coming to the stage of history. I mean, this moment of emancipation, moment of kind of, I mean, I don't know, explosion of all their aspirations and intentions. And my intervention was that, I mean, when I saw it, I thought that, wow, that's just incredible. They tried to occupy this scene of history, but still they end up in this archive and no one just sees. So it was almost like a way to build a monument to these people, without connecting them with any kind of organization, party, or whatever. Because there are even no last names. Very often just names. And as the researchers explained, they excluded their last names in order to not be identified as communists or something, and so on and so on. And two archival photographs that are behind these flags. One photograph is from 20s. So the fascist Italy, and you also have, if you will look at it, because it's so huge that you can see all small details, you will see the word Duce written over, which refers to Mussolini, obviously, that is written over the gates. And another photograph, it's already 70s, and you have the manifestation. So I'm showing also this kind of political trajectory of the country, created also with efforts of these women, because I mean, from fascism to this kind of modern contemporary Italy in 70s and 80s, with very strong communist party. But the main thing, of course, is to bring, I don't know, to preserve legacy, to make a monument for these women, and this decision. But also, if you will look at it, I mean, you know, this kind of group photographs, when you put people, you have like lines of heads, one after the other, like in school photographs or something. When you look at these flags, and if you will try to imagine that there is a face behind each small name, you see it like a group photograph. So at the end, I'm just showing you a group photograph of these people, but there are no faces, there are no image, just a name done by hand.
Yeah, I think as my kind of last question for you before we open it up to the Q&A, I just want to kind of bring all of those examples of your work into one kind of a question. You know, each of those times you're pulling an individual out of the collective. You're showing us individual decisions on the part of these women in this factory. This is my name. You're showing us individual decisions on the part of you know, the memorandum is written by people in the United States government who have decided.
And Steichen accepting this proposal.
Right. So people are making. Right. So in other words, all of these projects you're working on, they're designed to be marketed as flat-faced, closed, opaque systems that are collective, whether it's from the US or from the USSR. But you've extracted from each of them a very subjective moment. And yet you're also doing this in the language of didactics. So you are borrowing from the language of documentary, from the language of marketing, from the language of other kinds of trusted avenues of learning, right? In your display conventions. So you use these little lamps that attach to these, whatever, these placards, and you use the blown up photograph, and you use the vitrine. So you're using the language of the official kind of truth in order to reveal apertures and cracks in that facade. But I want to know, finally, how did you change this show as you moved through 4 different sites? I think 3 different countries, if I'm not wrong. Even though you are trying to be more transparent in revealing other people's choices, how did you then end up having to morph yourself for different audiences, and what influenced you to make this?
Well, yeah, of course, the exhibition went, it was presented in Italy. After that, it was presented in Russia, and after that in Turkey. There is this common denominator, of course. Always there is this kind of common ground. Some elements, they do not change, and some. The most important, the fundament of as you noticed, the basic premise of this display. I'm trying to bring you in a situation that looks like a historical exhibition from 50s. It should have certain kind of Soviet flavor or in aesthetics, or it should have some kind of mid-century Steichen exhibition in itself. At the same time, I'm trying to allow you, to give you some distance, to give you some air, because I don't want you, the point here is that I don't want to become some kind of Soviet cultural bureaucrat, just rebuilding. I'm not interested in becoming like historical actor or like pretending to be someone else. At the same time, I don't want you to be a person from 59. I want to oppress you with this visuality. So that's also why I'm showing you the visitors' comments. And because I'm trying, you have to negotiate between the way how it looks and what it is in reality. And I'm also trying to codify it into display, into the design basically of this exhibition furniture, because I borrow it from some photographs of installation views, but at the same time, I'm trying to deconstruct it a little bit, just cut the volumes, make it a little bit naked, and so on and so on. So this remains as a kind of common ground. This premise, this rule does not change. It's the same in Italy, in Russia, and in Turkey. After that, obviously, there is a strong kind of force field of the context, because, of course, in Italy, it's a story. It's a story about Italian history somehow, because all this exhibition, they happened here, they've been seen here. It's a history of a country with the biggest communist party outside of Eastern Bloc. Mm-hmm. It's part of Italian history. Who been doing this exhibition, who went to see them, and so on and so on. So it has to do a lot with Italian history. That's why, for example, the central table in the exhibition, in case of Italian exhibition, is focused on kind of behind the scenes of this cultural diplomacy. So images from the photographic archive of this friendship association, mm-hmm. Italy and USSR. So you see what was happening, this kind of another side of this cultural diplomacy. You have this kind of public side, exhibitions, and after that you see what was happening behind the closed doors. It won't work the same in Moscow, because Moscow, of course, the dominant narrative is this USSR story. And for Moscow, I changed, the table remains the same, like the design of this installation element. But the contents, I changed the contents. So in Moscow, it focused on the history of family of man, visited the travel of family of man to Moscow, and the self-censorship story. Because of course, it resonates more and it means more. In Turkey, it was completely different story. I didn't show there the table, nor with documents, neither with the photographs from Italian archive. I produced a new work, this photograph of the lunar globe, and the film projector that you used in an announcement. So it's obviously, I mean, it's a living organism, and each exhibition. I mean, here I choose just the Soviet approach because it's not family of man. It's not the same thing going all over the places because it won't work. I mean, something will be always kind of off. Because my decision was that, okay, I will adapt it and I will produce new pieces specifically for each place. The film was produced specifically for Moscow. Specifically for Italy was produced this research, this table with images, and so on and so on. So yeah, it changes a lot because again, I'm trying to I give you this space for your kind of critical distance, but I also want to feel it with what you have to think about in a way. Because if you are in Italy, maybe it could be interesting to focus who been these people, why they were doing.
And it would be different in Rhodesia. It would be different in, you know, if you took it to any of the countries depicted, right?
It could be, yeah, I mean, there is a potentiality for change and kind of remodulation and changes of the elements. But I think it's a beauty of this project. I mean, it allows me basically to tackle different aspects of the story, working with different countries and different contexts.
Since we don't have any questions yet in the Q&A, let me follow up with the question that actually relates to the very start of this interview, the connections between past and present and possibly future. How would you make that connection explicit in the 3 exhibitions you just described and in your project in general? What do you want to convey with an echo in the present? And do you have a message with your exhibitions?
Yes, definitely. Of course, I don't know if I actually managed to deliver it. I don't know how it's perceived, because probably I had to make also this visitors comments books to understand how it's perceived. I mean, my main concern was that so basically this project started. The initial point was that it was important for me that it's not only photographs, it's not only images, it's exhibitions. And when I started to work on it, I thought that, okay, well, we are dealing with exhibition diplomacy, or diplomacy by the means of exhibition, like kind of this political communication. And if I'm going to make a project about it, I will have to bring it back to an exhibition space. So is it possible to make an exhibition about exhibitions? And which kind of, is there anything kind of productive to take out of this tautology? Like bringing it back in the same space and trying to deal. So it became for me kind of ontological inquiry. I mean, speaking about the medium within the constraints of this medium. And when I bring it into different contexts, what I'm trying to, I mean, I would be happy if you would think about exhibition as a medium. If you would think about, I mean, because let's be clear. I mean, photography, it's obsolete. No one, I mean, images, they're not functioning in the same way, and even cinema. So my question as an artist, as someone working with exhibition, would be: is exhibition obsolete? Will we what, I mean, is there any potential political or analytical or any kind of other potential behind this specific medium? This medium which requires people to come together to a certain space, look at the images, texts, objects, arrangement of figures, bodies, or anything else. I mean, is there any potential still in this specific medium, seeing all the saturated digital media landscape of today? I mean, that would be my, I mean, I would be happy if you would start to think about this. I mean, what it means to make exhibition today. Could it be politicized?
Did you see that thing in The Economist today about the German-Russian exhibition? It's in Berlin. It's called Diversity United, and it's I haven't seen it, but I know there's one artist in it, Katya Morontsev or something. Yekaterina Morontsev. Anyway,
I will check it later, but no.
But what's interesting in response to what you're saying is that most of the time I think of TV and film as where we continue our Cold War with respect to images, but this show this morning was touted as was used as an anti-Russian device. It was to say that there was this lovely humanistic exhibition done in Germany involving some Russian artists that Moscow would not tolerate, implying that all of those artists in that show were not welcome in Russia. Well, the artist that they use as their front page star is someone whose work originated in Russia. I saw it first at Garage. It's still exhibited, I think, right now at Excel Gallery in Moscow. There's no problem with her work per se, maybe with the exhibition. And so today, of all days, there's absolute image diplomacy happening with respect to exhibitions. Interesting.
Well, I just
speaking to.
I mean, it's very, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's just very interesting. I just like this situation when art becomes a political act. Moments of instrumentalization and all this tension which arise out of it. I mean, how artists start to resist, how political kind of bureaucrats, diplomats. I mean, you have this kind of node of power, this kind of power struggle within this. It's really beautiful, this situation, when it becomes this kind of really kind of strange thing. No one knows what to do, allowed, not allowed, censored or not. I mean, it acquires this kind of additional dimension where everything kind of acquires, I don't know, becomes more dramatic, more conflictual. I mean, becomes just kind of interesting.
Right. And speaking about this particular day, I want to conclude with a chat from Paula Goldman, who writes, "So fun that this talk is at the same day as the Biden-Putin summit."
Yeah, so we planned it. I mean,
of course we did.
They planned it around us.
Vladislav, I want to thank you very, very much for this very interesting and also entertaining conversation. It was great to have you.
Thank you very much.
And Farrah, I also want to thank you very much, because we have done this incredible journey together with our 10 Art Past Present interviews. It was such a pleasure to work with you, and I'm sure we'll do something together in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Joes. It's, this has been a really wonderful discussion series, because it's so much more than just what we usually get to do as artists, market our work when we give our talks. But this one, I really have enjoyed listening to the questions you open up with people. It's been really fun. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. So next week there won't be an interview, but we will continue our Cold War Spaces interview series every second week. The next one is on June 30th, and our guest is Karen Bijsterveld, Professor of Science, Technology and Modern Culture at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. And I will speak with her about her research on voice identification and sound identification at the Stasi in East Germany. So I hope to see you then, and thank you for watching.